Todd, oh dear God, Todd, please don't let the Fallout show be a clusterfuck like this, please, Todd.
A teaser announcement on June 2nd, 2015 went live on Bethesda's social medias. It included the infamous Fallout Please Stand By graphic, as well as a link to a countdown page, which when that concluded a day later, Fallout 4 was officially announced, alongside its first trailer, which gave an early glimpse into the beautiful post-apocalyptic locations and environments of the Commonwealth. Regardless of your opinion on Fallout 4, this is a moment that I think most Fallout fans remember fondly. For years, fans endured numerous supposed leaks such as the Survivor 2299 saga, an alleged design document reported by Kotaku, and numerous BS Reddit posts. Following Fallout 3, it was a roller coaster of silence as Bethesda pivoted their attention to Skyrim, and then once they finished with that game, basically had nothing to say for about 4 years. At the very least, it was nice to have a well-made spin-off game filling the gap from Fallout 3 to 4. Now, I bring up this history to of course reminisce, but also to compare with where we are now. The Fallout franchise kinda is in a precarious position right now. Bethesda Game Studios is going to be tied up for the next 5 or so years working on other franchises. Starfield is not set to launch until early 2023, and judging by the scope that Todd Howard and his team have talked about with The Elder Scrolls 6, that probably shouldn't be expected until maybe 2027. Sorry, Skyrim Grandma. But then finally Bethesda will have their attention on hopefully Fallout 5, a game that definitely seems like it won't release until around 2030. So the gap from the last mainline Fallout game, Fallout 4 to Fallout 5, could be 15 years, which is probably around the same gap we'll see going from the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim to the Elder Scrolls 6. Now of course, the plan at Bethesda for both the Elder Scrolls and Fallout were to launch long-lasting live service games that bridge the gap and also satisfies fans' cravings for more content from these iconic franchises. I think I can say with confidence that this plan has not exactly worked all that well. Despite a rough launch, The Elder Scrolls Online, or ESO, is one of the most notable examples of a live service turning it around, and the team at ZeniMax has provided significant content updates regularly, including paid expansions and DLC game packs, which has kept the ESO player base quite active with just about 20,000 average concurrent players on Steam alone. Now Fallout 76, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story. While indeed this live service suffered what I can only describe as a chaotic and controversial launch, it too has somewhat gotten better. The Wastelanders update in particular, which was released in April of 2020, was a real highlight for this game. It introduced human NPCs along with a new 10-hour main storyline, factions to side with, new quests, characters to interact with, new weapons, gear, and locations. It was a big moment for Fallout 76. It's just such a shame that Bethesda did not really build off of this potential with content that meets or exceeds what Wastelanders was. The other big story-driven expansion was Fractured Steel, which was later split into 2 separate DLCs, Steel Dawn and Steel Rain, and it saw the introduction of the Brotherhood of Steel to Appalachia. Like Wastelanders, this too brought a new main storyline, characters to side with, some choices, new quests, locations, weapons, and gear. Steel Dawn released in November of 2020, and Steel Rain released in July of 2021. Altogether, it brought about 8 hours worth of story content and was mostly met to a mixed reception. The thing is, just because story content is introduced doesn't mean it's automatically good. I personally found the writing quite underwhelming, and like most within the Fallout 76 community, found the length of this story content way too short. Now of course, Fallout 76 has had other DLCs over the years, which brought about the introduction of private worlds, legendary perks, daily ops, a stupid subscription service, multiple seasonal events, multiple seasonal scoreboards, multiple quality of life features, a few new endgame bosses, and a battle royale mode which enjoyed great early success but has since died off. Considering all of this content came in the span of about 3.5 years since launch, this has largely been viewed as simply just not enough, especially in the last year or so. Fallout 76 has suffered numerous content droughts, and honestly the content actually provided, unfortunately, has been widely viewed as not being worth logging in for. One of the biggest requested features prior to launch modding still remains MIA, with the last time Bethesda acknowledging it being well over 18 months ago. Not really surprising considering that mods have been such a low priority for Bethesda since the Atomic Shop, the microtransaction store, will or would have taken a huge hit with the introduction of that feature. Another piece of content that has suffered a few delays is Expeditions. This is something that is set to release in the near future and will allow players to travel to locations outside of Appalachia. Appalachia, the first being the Pitt, a location we last visited in Fallout 3's DLC. Now, the issue with expeditions is that instead of just going to this location, exploring the city, taking on quests, talking to NPCs, making choices, discovering new gear and weapons, well, this is what some had envisioned with this feature. That does not appear to be what Bethesda has built. Instead, based on the experiences of those in the Fallout 76 playtest server, the Pitt essentially is a glorified daily op. As outlined by Reddit user YesNoGuro, to even enter the Pitt, you must complete 3 daily fetch or kill quests in Appalachia in order to charge up an ultrasight battery, which is your key for going to the Pitt. Next, once you arrive at the Pitt, you're thrown into back-to-back fetch and kill quests along with a mini-boss to eliminate, supplies to scavenge, and prisoners to free. After that, a wave defense mission starts where you defend a group of Union members against waves of Trogs, capped off by a final Trog boss that has a chance of spawning as a legendary. Last but not least, you turn in your objectives, get rewarded, and then either explore the Pitt or head back home. From what's been detailed, the Pitt doesn't include any meaningful interactions. There are 2 generic good and bad guy factions, with you only being able to work for the good guy faction, and the bad guy faction is just there for you to kill them. No choices or anything is here. The generic good guys tell you to do X, Y, and Z, and that pretty much is it. The mission I just described will rotate with other missions when Expeditions officially releases later this year, but essentially this is just like how daily ops works. As is the case with past expansions and DLCs, Expeditions also introduces a new currency, so once you complete an expedition mission, you earn stamps which can be turned in for rare expedition item plans. This is the content that players will likely spend weeks or maybe even months grinding for, as each new rare item plan will probably require an enormous amount of stamps, which will of course take a long time to earn and keep players returning daily. Beyond the Pitt, the other significant piece of content coming is Nuka World on tour, which likely just means Bethesda Austin will reuse most of the assets from Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC and bring it to Appalachia. This DLC doesn't mention any story-related content, but instead a new regional boss and public events. That is Fallout 76 and its future. This is at the moment the only guaranteed new Fallout content coming the next number of years. This is also an experience that, at least on Steam, has about a third of the player base that ESO has. On Xbox, both Fallout 4 and Skyrim feature more daily players than Fallout 76, which is quite telling. Despite Fallout 76 getting better since it released, which really doesn't say a whole lot, it still just isn't very good, which is why I find it quite disappointing that this is the only new Fallout content coming in the near future. According to Fallout 76 design director Mark Tucker, who spoke to Oz Gamers earlier this year, Bethesda currently has a 5-year roadmap for Fallout 76, and if we're to base this upcoming content with what's been released in the last 18 months, there's zero reason to be excited. But it was also announced earlier this year that Bethesda Austin is now co-developing the game with Double 11, a developer with experience with online games, as they previously assisted in the development of Rust and Minecraft Dungeons. Maybe this extra manpower can produce some actual meaningful content, or not. Now, if Bethesda were still an independent company, there is a very real chance that this would be the only new Fallout content coming until the inevitable Fallout 5. Before someone ponders if maybe someone else could develop Fallout 5, well, Bethesda head and game director Todd Howard last year basically answered that question in an interview with IGN.
Seemingly publicly committed to Elder Scrolls 6 being the thing after Starfield. Sure. So does Fallout just go to the back of the line? As far as mainline, yes, there's 76, but as far as the mainline Fallouts,
right,
is that going to the back of the line, or is that a thing where you've now got an entire Xbox family at your back and people
Sure.
like In Exile and Obsidian? And is there a scenario where you hand Fallout off?
I don't see, look, Fallout's really part of our DNA here.
Yeah.
We've worked with other people from time to time. I can't say what's going to happen. We have a one-pager on Fallout 5, what we want to do. Again, if I could wave my hand and say, have
Right.
that out. I'd like to find a way to accelerate what we do. But I can't really say today or commit to anything what's going to happen when, other than, hey, our cadence is Starfield and then Elder Scrolls 6.
Even though Howard was hesitant to give a direct answer, it's quite clear in my opinion that Bethesda Game Studios plans to or wants to develop Fallout 5, and I personally do not believe Microsoft will interfere with that vision. As Howard mentions, they have an early concept document for Fallout 5 written. What will be the story, when will it be set, where will it be located, when will it release is something we'll be discussing for a very long time. It is worth noting in the No Clip 2018 documentary titled The history of Bethesda Game Studios, it is revealed by Bethesda staff that before Boston was chosen as the main setting for Fallout 4, New York was considered. Another location that has been considered is San Francisco. Notably, Bethesda had asked Obsidian Entertainment during the development of Fallout New Vegas to change a line of dialogue which stated that San Francisco had been totally wiped off the map, and Bethesda asked them to remove those lines to ensure that San Francisco remained a possible setting for future games. It would not surprise me in the slightest that the next Bethesda Game Studios Fallout game is indeed set on the West Coast. So while Fallout 5 is years away, there is a glimmer of hope that there is more than just Fallout 76 coming in the near future for fans of this franchise. That hope came earlier this year when VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb revealed that there is interest within Microsoft to have Obsidian develop a new Fallout game. Grubb said specifically, "This is very early, but people have begun to have talks and say these words in sentences, and those words are Obsidian and New Vegas 2. We're talking years and years away. There's at least an interest in conversations happening about making something like that actually a reality. A lot of people at Microsoft think that this could work, and there's a lot of interest to make it happen." While immediately the reaction to this news was crazy excitement, the reality is that this would be, like Grubb said, years away. Obsidian is a very busy developer these days. They're actively working on Avowed, The Outer Worlds 2, Grounded, and multiple other projects. It's also important to note that this Obsidian today is not the same as the one that developed Fallout New Vegas, as numerous veteran staff have left the developer over the years. Still though, I think I speak for everyone when saying I would love to see a new Fallout game from today's Obsidian, even if they aren't the same studio as they once were. One of Fallout New Vegas's lead designers and directors, Chris Avallone, was asked earlier this year if he knew anything about a New Vegas 2 and responded with nothing, except it probably wouldn't be called New Vegas 2. I do think any such game would require Bethesda support. Even though they are owned by Microsoft, I know people assume that Phil Spencer could simply force Bethesda to do something, but that's not the pattern from the studios that Microsoft has acquired. And I think that's a spot-on analysis, as well as Avallone's analysis on Fallout 76. If Obsidian is to do another Fallout, it would have to come with the blessing of Bethesda. Even so, I don't see any reason for why Bethesda would not allow for this to happen. A few years ago, Todd Howard basically said he loved working with Obsidian on New Vegas, but the reason why they didn't want to do another was for financial reasons. That financial reason isn't really a factor anymore, considering they both are now under the Microsoft umbrella. Beyond the possibility of a new Obsidian developed Fallout spin-off, an aspect of new Fallout content that rarely gets the attention and appreciation it deserves is the modding community. There are some absolute stunning things on the horizon. Getting a bit more specific, Fallout Vault 13 debuted its first trailer just recently. This mod is recreating the 2D Fallout 1 into Fallout 4's creation engine, and to say the early look at this project is impressive would be an understatement. This is the type of remake that I dreamed Bethesda might do one day, but based on Todd Howard's position on remasters and remakes, probably unlikely, at least from Bethesda, we see something like this, which is why it's awesome seeing the community taking the initiative and doing this themselves. Another remake which has made a bit more progress is the Capital Wasteland project, which is recreating Fallout 3 into Fallout 4. This mod has been in development for quite some time, and they've faced some hurdles over the years. Notably, this project was briefly on hold when Bethesda notified the mod developers that they could not grant them the rights to use Fallout 3's voice acting because of licensing agreements. So after a brief hiatus, the Capital Wasteland team decided they would re-record the 45,000 voice lines that are featured in Fallout 3, using volunteer voice actors that have similar voices to that of the Fallout 3 cast. A mighty task. Anyway, this project has made great progress over the years, sharing tons of new images and footage, as well as releasing Fallout 4 Point Lookout, which is a faithful recreation of Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC in Fallout 4. This is something that is complete and can be downloaded and played today. Now, besides these projects, there are ongoing efforts to recreate Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4, but those projects have been quiet for quite some time, and it's unclear the progress that they have made or are making. Other than fan remasters and remakes of older Fallout games, there are efforts to create new experiences, one of which gained a lot of attention a few years ago is Fallout Miami. This mod for Fallout 4, as you might expect, intends to take players to Miami for a brand new storyline, locations, weapons, factions, enemies, companions, and more. The team behind Fallout Miami have regularly shared new footage and updates. The project looks like it's coming together well with a very impressive and diverse post-apocalyptic Miami setting. Another mod similar to this is Fallout Cascadia, which instead of a setting in Miami, this one is based in Seattle. This project too has made great progress and has shared various previews previews of what they are building. Personally though, the most impressive project that just shared a very interesting gameplay preview is Fallout London. Again, another Fallout 4 expansion mod that takes us overseas this time to a very different and unique setting. I just really am fascinated by the London environment this team has created, as well as the mystery and horror of this world. There's just so much detail here, from the architecture to the animation to the Doctor Who cameos they somehow got involved in this project. This is all extremely impressive and shows the true power and creativity within the Fallout modding scene, which only continues to get bigger and better. Now ultimately, there are just tons of huge Fallout mods in development, and these things take years to put together, with it not guaranteed it will ever see the light of day. That is the downfall with these mods. It's volunteer work done in the name of passion and love for this franchise. These are very small teams that are investing their free time attempting to create something that usually takes an entire well-funded game studio of hundreds of experienced developers multiple years. Regardless of that huge caveat, amazing things are happening, and if any of these projects reach the finish line, it should be viewed as a giant accomplishment and also a gift to the Fallout community. Well, unless it ends up like the cringy clusterfuck that was Fallout the Frontier. We're likely close to about a decade away from the next mainline entry in this franchise, but as I've discussed, there's reasons to feel optimistic over the next couple of years. Well, yes, Fallout 76 and I suppose the TV show is the only official new content confirmed at the moment to fill the gap, it seems there's a very good chance we see Obsidian take another shot at a Fallout spin-off, and I honestly would not be surprised to see other Microsoft-owned studios get an opportunity down the road eventually. In Exile Entertainment's founder Brian Fargo infamously has deep roots to the Fallout franchise, serving as the executive producer on the first game and overseeing the development studio of both the first two games as CEO. Many wonder if we could see In Exile making a new Fallout game or maybe even remastering some of the older titles. Another dark horse candidate for developing a new Fallout game I think would be Arcane. Maybe it's just me, but I definitely can see a fit. Either way, Microsoft spent about $9 billion acquiring Bethesda, and Fallout is their biggest franchise. I just don't think it makes any logical sense that this franchise does not get a new game in the next few years, especially as Fallout 76 continues to struggle to retain players and support for the live service has gotten worse with time. I firmly believe that Xbox head Phil Spencer and Bethesda's Todd Howard have a plan for this franchise in the near future. Xbox is in dire need of some explosive exclusives, and a new Fallout game would certainly grab a lot of attention. So my expectation is that something is brewing, and I just hope we don't have to wait too long to find out what that is. Anyway, do you believe the Fallout franchise is in trouble, or are you anticipating a new spin-off not developed by Bethesda in the near future? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.